Good evening to everyone. Hope you can hear me. I'd like to dedicate this shir, at least my part of it. I can't dedicate your time, but I can dedicate my time to a young lady who is having very serious health challenges. Her name is Chana Yenta Rivka Bas Shendel. Actually, her name was Chana Rivka till yesterday. They added a name. So that's Chana Yenta Rivka Bas Shendel. If you don't mind, I'd like to say a kapitel Tilim. I'll say a kapitel Chof, if you don't mind joining me with that. And I'll give tzedakah, and if you give tzedakah in her zchus, she should have a refuah shleima. Nam natzeach mizvul David, Yahan Chol Adonai b'yem tzara, Yisagev Hashem Elahei Yaakov, Yishlach Ezracha mikodesh, Mitzion Yisadecha, Yizker Kol min chesecha, V'yiloscha Yidash Nasela, Yitin L'chol Chil V'avecha, V'chol Atzoscha Yimalei, Ranana b'shuasecha v'shem Eloheinu nidgel Yimalei Adonai kol mishalasecha atu yadati ki hoshia Adonai Meshicha ya'anehu mishmei kodshoi v'gvuros yeshi yiminoi eile v'rechev ve'eile v'asusim v'nachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu nasker hem akorov v'nafolo v'nachnu kamnu v'anis oidod Adonai hoshia melech ya'aneinu v'yem kareinu v'shebecha v'sina v'ro misuk v'yakim v'sha'an dal v'shleim v'yirape es Chana Yenta Rivka Bas Shendel ba'avor attended stock about Horo, Skaza Kodesh Brocho Yimoli Rachim Aleha Lachlim and Arpesa Lachzik Lachyosa, Yishlach Lam Heir for Shleim and Shmail Halavereh Gideha Sech Sharka Yisrael, Fuas Nefesh, Fuas Haguf, Benoimer Omen. So let's start with the first question, which a lot of people are asking about the union of Birchas Hailonos, making a brocha on the blossoms, which it says this is the lashon of the Brisa, and Al Rebbe brings it in the Seder Birchas Hanernin. Hayoytze b'mei Nisan, one who goes out, goes for a walk in the country, and he sees trees which have produced blossoms. He should say the bracha, Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shelo yichisar ba'olam klum, that Hashem did not leave anything missing in his world. Avora by briyos toivos, he created fine creatures, v'ilonos toivos, and fine trees, leihonos b'hem b'nei odom, that people should have benefit from them. V'eini mevorich elo b'pam rishoyna shiroi b'chol shana. You say it, the bracha, only the first time each year. So meanwhile, it says Yemei Nisan. So here we have the first quote, which you have over here, is from the Birkei Yosef, from the Chidah. This is in Shulchan Aruch, in Orach Chaim Reish Chav Vav. V'ani shamati di bracha zoi al derech ha'emes shayich dafka limei Nisan. That I heard that according to Kabbalah, that the bracha belongs only in the month of Nisan. And people are asking, because especially I think this year, perhaps the season is a bit still cold and a lot of blossoms haven't started coming out. And so people are asking, can we still make the bracha when we see the blossoms in Iyar? So meanwhile, we have the Chidah who says it belongs to Nisan. Then the other quote is also from the Chidah, and this is from a different sefer called Moire Be'etzba. It's inside the sefer called Avodas HaKodesh, which has got several sections, Moira Be'etzba. So Seif Yukuf Tzadik Ches says, you should be mishtadel, you should try to say the bracha on the trees during the month of Nisan. And Hamakdaktikim, but it should be dafke in Nisan. You should also make a point, it should be 2 trees, because you say Ilonos, V'yotzim l'sode levorech, one would go out to the fields to make the bracha. Point of Kotzadik Tes, he says you should be misatzim bekavanosu bebrocha zoi. You should have extreme attention in this bracha because it's the tikkun haneshamos. This is to rectify the neshamos which are megulgolos beyatzi hasod v'asabim. You have neshamos which have been reincarnated in trees and in herbs. V'yevakesh aleim rachamim, and you should plead for them that they should be given relief, etc. So this is these are the 2 points from the Chidah. So we're seeing here not just on plain it's not just a bracha on blossoms, it's something to do with neshamas, etc. Now, I have seen, or somehow perhaps in my mind I'm confusing, that there is in the Sefer Kav HaYoshor talks about why we say the Nossi in the month of Nisan. And he says in the month of, there's a special time for the Neshamas, Aliyas and Neshamas of some sort, Tishri time and Nisan time. And Tishri time, we go out to Elul, we go to Kivrei Ovis, so people go out to the Beis Olam, and that's one way of helping the Neshamas. Comes Nisan, we don't go out to the Beis Olam on Nisan, but on the other hand, we say the Nosi, and if you think about the Yehirotzen, the Mischadshim, Ketziporim, Mitzavzim, it's somehow got to do with Nishmosin, of rejuvenation of the Neshamas. And that seems to be, in my mind, perhaps I'm confusing, but this thing which the Chidoy is saying about relating to the Neshamas, it seems to be, in my mind, connected. Let's now go on to a letter of the Rebbe, where he talks, it's a Michtav Kloli, he talks about Chodesh Ha'aviv, the month of spring, when Hashem takes us out from Mitzrayim. And he then, towards the end of the paragraph, he says, in dem Nusach von unserer Chachamim Zechreinu Levracha, Hashem Elokeinu is Melech HaOlam, the Kenik from Vel, the Eibush is the king of the world, Shelo yichisar be'olam moi klum, as hot gemacht, das soll nicht in gar nicht fällen. How did he translate the word lo yichisar? That the Eibush engineered, there's nothing missing in the world. Okay, so the Brocho, as we know, is in the Gemara, and he says the Brocho is in Brochos Daf Mem Gimel. And then the Rebbe addresses this. V'hinei lekama achroinim, some achroinim say, listen lav dafka. Aval yesh shomim de dafkahu. Some say it's dafka in the month of Nisan. Now, I apologize, I did not look up the Stei Chemed, which the Rebbe refers to. So in my Stei Chemed, in that encyclopedia, you'll see the various opinions, whether it's dafka Nisan or not. What is our opinion? In other words, what does the Alter Rebbe hold? So the Alter Rebbe, as we know, in addition to the Shulchan Aruch, he wrote the Siddur, and he also wrote an earlier kind of interim edition on brachas called Luach Birchas Hanehenin. The later edition was called Seder Birchas Hanehenin. Now, so the Luach Birchas Hanehenin Horishon, which is the first of the two editions, he says that after Lamed, Yevorech Beloi Shem Umalchus. So he says after Lamed, in other words, if it's after 30 days, so then you should say the bracha without Shem Umalchus. If you see again, we'll see in a moment. Obviously, if he's saying after 30 days, that means Nisan Lav Davka, because how does it mean after 30 days? But in Seder Birchas Hanehenin, the Alter Rebbe misses that out. Perhaps he means that you should only say the bracha the first time. If that's the case, that he says you can make the bracha in Iyar also, he should have said that the word bimei Nisan, when it says it's one who sees trees bimei Nisan, he should have said it's lav dafka. As he does explain many halachas in the Birchas Hanehenin, it's translated in a very simple language. So if Nisan is lav dafka, he should have said so. And then he's saying, yesh loimar, the hishmit, perhaps he missed out this thing about after 30 days. If he saw it once and he saw again after 30 days, because he holds that it's only Yemei Nisan kipshutoi bedavka, and therefore therefore it's not possible. So we have here, so the Welt takes the view that so long as, so you see there's different opinions, but the general Welt opinion is that you can also say the bracha in Iyar also, so long as that's the blossoming season. And according to that, possibly Australia would be able to say the bracha. It's dafka in the Chodesh Nisan. Let's move on. Okay. So my next question, which is a totally different type of question, is a money matter. So here we have a story, a real story, that there's someone who passed away, and grandma's flat now has to be sold or emptied, and there's lots of old furniture there. And what do you do with all that furniture? Well, one way is to get a skip, but there's a perhaps save the world attitude. resell it, and then you put it something on Gumtree or something, and people come along and see that furniture, as a famous expression, one man's trash is the other one's treasure. So fine. So they one evening, a non-Jewish couple came along, knocked on the door, and they said they want to see the furniture. They looked around and they saw a couple of armchairs, and they said, well, how much do you want for those? Says, well, 20 each. Nah, 20 for the two. Okay, take 20 for the two. They took out 20, the visitor took out £20 in cash, gave it to him. He says, I don't have a van here, just with a little car. Well, come next week, we'll pick it up. In the interim, one of the grandchildren came to the emptying apartment and saw those armchairs. Says, those armchairs, wow, I remember how Bobby and Zadie would sit and relax, and I got such good memories of their armchairs. I'm having them. Oh, we sold them. Nah, I'm having them, forget it. And so now we have a goy has put down £20 to buy those armchairs. And now, can you cancel that sale? Is it a sale? Right. So now, what do we have here? Let's read this lashon over here in the Shulchan Aruch. There's two ways of being koine. There's one way of being koine through kinyan kesef, and one way is kinyan meshicha. Kinyan kesef means you hand over money, and meshicha means you actually pick up the article, pull it if it's an animal, etc. Meshicha. Now, min haTorah, we would be koine with money. So if I would come to you, if you're a farmer and I want to buy grain, and I give you £100, and so the grain in your attic belongs now to me. That's min haTorah. What would happen if a fire would break out? So then you've got the £100. I mean, yeah. So you're not going to start salvaging the grain from the attic, because you know what? It might even be worse. It might be that you'll tell me that there was a fire in the attic, and and just keep the money. So the expression Shema yoimru loi nisrifu chitecha bo'aliyah. The Chachamim therefore cancelled the power of kinyan kesef, and they said the only way you can be mitkoine portable objects is only with a more tangible kinyan, not through giving money. That is true. So Israel, for a Jew from a Jew, would only koine be the meshicha or hagvor, not with money. What about with the goy? So here there are different opinions about this, and some say, Rambam says a goy can be koine with meshicha or kesef. Rambam says a goy is koine only with kesef, not meshicha. Rabbeinu Tam says with the meshicha, not with kesef. So it looks like the halacha seems to follow Rabbeinu Tam, that a goy is not koine with kesef, only with meshicha. Having said that, here we have a Tshuvas HaRashba. He writes the following: even according to the first svara, that a goy is not koine, is not koine with kesef, only with meshicha. See the note at the bottom. Even if you only say that a goy is not koine with kesef, only with meshicha, in other words, according to Rabbeinu Tam, says the Rashba, nirin hadvorim, the kiva de b'neim bizman hazeh, because in goyish law, currently, koinin zeh mizeh bekesef, that a goy is koine from another goy, with putting down money, that if you put down money, it's considered sold. Af anan minayu koinin mehem bekesef b'dineim. So then also we, vis-a-vis goyim, would also be have to recognize kinyan kesef. Like tehei elo shenoagu, even though you're going to say it's just that's the custom. Hanhogod milsahi, that should be recognized as something important. Even Yisrael mi Yisrael, and he quotes the lashon of situmta. If this is the conventional approach of kinyan, situmta lashon, with the lashon of the Gemara is kanyo, and therefore what we're seeing here is that even if you'd say that there is lomdus to say that the goy is not koine by kesef, says the Rashba, if that's the minig haMedina, that kinyan kesef is koine, then that sale is final. So my understanding is that actually the furniture is sold to the goy, and they should actually give it back to the goy when they can. Let's move on. So here we have another money question. Now, here is though, here it's a ribis question. I'm alerted to that the Yahadus book, for the people of my age, Yahadus book is that the thing, you may have heard something called chidon, where you got children who are memorizing all about the Sefer HaMitzvahs, and so one of those members who went through the chidon tells me that the Yahadus book translates situmta as a handshake. Okay. So no, we didn't learn this kind of stuff when we were 11 years old, huh? Right. So let's move on. So now, here's a ribis question, and it says in Gemara. One of the people said, if Moshe Rabbeinu had been a businessman, he would never have taught this business about ribis. This is how business works. Your money. What is ribis? I'm giving you money for time. And I'm charging. I'm renting you my money. Money is energy, and you're using my energy over time. So I'm taking money for it. Anyway, we're not allowed to. And the laws of ribis are not in Choshen Mishpat. They are in the Yeredeya, because even if both sides are agreeable, and the lender is agreeable, the borrower is agreeable, it's still not kosher. It's not allowed. Okay. So the story is the following. That there's this distributor who distributes disposables around Europe. Now, he's been delivering a lot to Chabad houses, and some of them are not so prompt in payment. The consequences are that by the time they have paid, and because of the devaluation of the euro vis-a-vis the pound, he's actually being quite out of pocket. So he's trying to find a way of incentivizing these customers to pay more promptly. Now, what has to be made very clear is that you cannot advertise two prices. This is, you have in front of you, you have from the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Ribis. It's Alter Rebbe's made a different seder from the Mechaber. Mechaber, it's about 20 simonim. The Alter Rebbe condensed it into one simon. He says, so let's read that first of all. First thing, in a sale, after you've sold, after the kinyan has been effected, you're not allowed to say, oh, we've agreed £100. If you pay me £110, you can pay me 2 weeks' time. In other words, the person already owes you £100. To say that if you will pay more, you'll be able to wait with the payment, that's ribis gemura shel Torah. It's basically once you've paid and once you've made a kinyan, you owe the £100, so then you have a debt. That debt mustn't grow. The word ribis is lashon harbe. It mustn't grow. Then it goes further. Even before the sale has been finalized, you're not allowed to increase the price midrabonon, to say to the customer, if you give me the money now, it'll be for 10. If you want to pay later, it'll be 12. So you're not allowed to give two prices, one for prompt payment and one for delayed payment. And it may be, he says further, even if it's actually worth £12, and you're saying, if you give me now, I'll give you £10, it's still called avak ribis. The word avak can be translated as dust. It can also mean melashon of entanglement. If you remember Rashi on the words vayeovek ish imoy, that there's an entanglement. It's kind of pulling you towards ribis. The fee, and he says that because payment for a sale is not like a rental. As soon as the buyer has bought it, it's his. And the fact that you start increasing the price because he's going to pay you later, says basically you are charging for waiting for your money. And that's ribis. So really, he would have wanted to give them a price, a better price. Say if you pay within a week, it's £100 per box. And if you pay delayed, it's going to be 150, £110 per box. You're not allowed to do that. What can you do then? So we're back to this problem. how can you encourage your customers to pay on time, and which is actually more efficient for the entire industry. So I contacted a Ribis expert who said what he can do is, once they've taken delivery and they owe the money, he can say, if you pay me within the week, I'm going to drop 5%. That you can do. But because they are, you're giving a discount, they owe the £100, but if you pay within the week, it's going to be £95. That would be acceptable. Okay, let's move on. So here we have a different question altogether. We've got a story of two boys who are twins, and they are turning bar mitzvah. They are Kohanim. So normally when you got twins bar mitzvah, you can kindly ask the Kohanim to leave the room if you have a minyan without them. And you can give one, because there is also important to point out, you don't give two brothers an aliyah right one after the other. But I'm because I'm hora, etc. So now, but the Kohanim. So what do you do? So let's go to the next slide. So here we have the Shulchan Aruch in, I think it's Kuf Lamed Hey, yeah, and he says that you can call a Kohen after a Kohen with the Yisrael in between. And when you, so in other words, you call Rishon, you call a Kohen, and Sheni, you call a Yisrael, and then, or whatever, then you can, when you call Kohen again, you'll say, Af al Pishahu Kohen. So it's not to give him, to be confuse people about his status, whether there's a Kohen or not. Af al Pishahu Kohen. Then the Ramo is not so keen about that. But Yesh Oimrim, I'm pointing down the third line from the bottom. Yesh Oimrim, the Ein Likros Kohen or Levi Leminyan Shiva, that you shouldn't call a Kohen or Levi for the basic 3 aliyahs or the 7 aliyahs on Shabbos. Once you finish the 7 aliyahs, the people, most the Welt makes Hesofis, Yechoil Likros Kohen or Levi. V'chein noyagim b'medinos elu. That the minig Hashkenaz is that you don't call a Kohen after a Levi or after Yisrael in the basic number of aliyahs. But when you're stuck, you are able to, where there's a pressure, you need to give 2 aliyahs to Kohanim, then you can rely on the first Paisuk for the Mahalach of the Mechaber, who says that you can do Kohen Acha Kohen with the Levi or Yisrael Be'emtza. And although there's some further apprehension about that, so we've got here this sefer goes, he says, so also Halacha Lamaisa is very much a contemporary, that you can do that. You call up the Mamish is Shnei Kohanim V'heim Chasane Bar Mitzvah. So he does that on a Monday and a Thursday, and the reason why they're doing it on a Monday or Thursday is probably to avoid Chilul Shabbos. It's in a place where very spread out. Therefore, they're doing it dafka in a weekday, and so you'll give the first aliyah to one boy, and then a Yisrael, and then the third aliyah to the other boy, and Mazel Tov. I had first suggested perhaps one boy would lay in, and the other boy would have the aliyah. But I was informed that neither of them are capable of laning. They'll make the brochas, but right. Okay, I see here someone on the chat puts up a question, about the camps, etc., that they say that if you pay by this and this date, you'll pay so much, you get, in other words, an early bird discount. That is a problem. In Nesivim Mr. Shlichus, Chelik Aleph, I've written about this. There you have also, however, Reb Meir Aharon from Rehovot, who disagreed with me, and he says it's not a problem. There's a couple of points, there's a couple of choilkim there. So it is, I do see it as a problem. Now I'm going to confess to you who is my expert on ribis. His name is Abshabshi Tayar. And whenever there's a mivtza of a sale of there's a set of hanochis, this, that, and you get an early bird sale, he is right on the case. It's a problem in his ribis. One eitzah is a simple eitzah. There's a solution that you do it with a heter iska, that you are investing in the business. That's one eitzah which I would recommend. You know what, Reb Levi? The question is equally when you buy, I buy the Kfar Chabad, and I don't pay a weekly, whatever the weekly price. I give them $100 for a few months, and because of this, I get it cheaper. And so how does that work? So also one of the ways is that it works through heterisk. Well, this business is in law already, 100 years ago. They've already been worrying about this. All right, let's move on. So here we have a question, and interesting, I got this question from two different people, different countries, asking about the union of doing a borchu at the end of davening. So here we have, this is from the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, that this is Zimmer Samach Tes, and it's all about Poirus al Shema. So he has here that some places they have a minig that the Chazan says borchu every day after the last Kaddish. Now, the last Kaddish is different between Ashkenazim and Sfardim. By the Sfardim, they don't say a Kaddish after Aleinu necessarily. So the last Kaddish is the Kaddish after Kaveh El Hashem. By Ashkenazim, the last Kaddish, is after Aleinu. It doesn't matter. So this is from the Chavis, from the Rivosh, who says that they have a minig to say borchu every day after davening in case someone has come late to davening. And even if they don't, they still do this. Even there's no late comers, they still do this. But the Alter Rebbe says, if there is no worry about, he says about there's a difference between the Beis HaKnesses and the Beis HaMedrash. If it's not an established thing, and especially when you've got just Talmidei Chachamim, yesh lineg shelo yoyim hashliach tzibah baruchu el imkin bo echad achar baruchu. So one shouldn't do a borchu after davening unless there's a late comer. So that's the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, and here we have a letter of the Rebbe, where about saying borchu every day after davening, and obviously referring to the Tur in Kuf Lamed Gimel. The Alter Rebbe, we see that he doesn't bring this late borchu in the Siddur, although he has it for Friday night. And furthermore, we have Minig Beis Harav. We've never seen that we should be making this kind of borchu. And so basically the Rebbe seems to be discouraging it. So in Chabad it isn't encouraged. Now the question, a way it was put to me from one of them was that they struggle to get a minyan on time. Very often for borchu they still don't have a minyan because people straggle in later. And finally, it could be sometimes even they don't manage to do Chazos Hashatz because people haven't come. But by 8 o'clock, they will have 10 people. So I felt that then, yes, for sure, I think you should do a borchu. Although, so the Shulchan Aruch seems to be saying, I came in late, I will make a borchu after davening. And it possibly in Chabad, that's discouraged. When you came late, be embarrassed and sit at the back and be quiet. And the next time you come on time, but come and announce I came late and therefore I'm going to make a borchu. So perhaps that's why it's an attitude which in Chabad it's not seen. But if someone does want to make a borchu, you see for sure they came late, they want to make a borchu, gesundheit, and especially if there wasn't a minyan earlier, so to make a borchu later. And I think it should be, as you see, after the last Kaddish. I think that would be okay. Let's move on. The fact that he says by the Rebbe, you never saw it because there was a minyan on time. They never had such a thing that they didn't have a minyan for borchu, I presume. Okay. Then we have here, someone asked me about saying Kaddish. He happened to turn up late for shul, and he says Kaddish for various niftarim. Can you say Kaddish in middle of Psukei de Zimra? So in other words, the tzibur, the congregation already on for Shir Shel Yoim, and you are holding in middle of Psukei de Zimra. So you're about 20 minutes behind the minyan. Can you say your Kadeshim then? So here he says, the Chidah says you are allowed to say Kaddish. Achroinim disagree, but they say you shouldn't. But a Yosem, an orphan within the 11 months after the passing of a father or mother, and if he was late and he has for sure and he's now in the middle of Psukei de Zimra, he could say the Kadeshim in the appropriate places. So there is also, I didn't look it up now, there's a letter of the Rebbe which says also about saying, the letter I think was to Rabbi Dubov about saying Kaddish Drabonon. I think it was Rabbi Dubov. There's a letter of the Frierdiker Rebbe how it's important to say the Kaddish Drabonon before Hoidu. Rabbi Dubov was Mashgiach in Manchester Yeshiva. Perhaps it was there, perhaps it was in the Shul and Das Yisrael, but he would start davening early because he davened longer, so he started early. But he wanted to make sure that that Kaddish is said, so he asked the Rebbe, if he's now, let's say, on for Ashrei Hallelujah, and the Tzibur are starting Hoidu, can he say the Kaddish there? And the Rebbe says, since it's not your personal chiyuv, you shouldn't say the Kaddish there. So here, this is the balance here. If it's a personal chiyuv, and then you could say the Kaddish in the middle of Sukkot Zimra. If it's not a personal chiyuv, then you should try to delegate it to someone else. One more point about this is that if you pause between after Yishtabach, before Yotzer Eir, then you could say it there. One other thing I want to share with you, a Meister Shehoya. It was one Shabbos morning. It was about 10:30. And I was called to the door of the shul. There was a lady who has said that her husband had some kind of attack, and she wants to know whether she should call an ambulance. Now, so I was already middle of Sukkot Zimra. So I needed to answer, obviously. I said written Shulchan Aruch, if you need to, an emergency, interrupt the middle of Sukkot Zimra, you can say Baruch Hashem le'yolam omen v'omen, and that's like you have had your final bracha. When you come back and you want to resume your Psukkah de Zimra, say Baruch Hashem le'olam omen v'omen again. And that would say I did that. I answered her that of course she should call an ambulance or Hatzalah, whatever it was at the time. The next week, I felt that I should make a fuss that don't ask me such questions. If you have a question of emergency, you shouldn't start asking shilas, and you should deal with it promptly. All right, so that's the story with the Kaddish. So if it is a personal chiyuv, then you would say the Kaddish in Sukkot Zimra. Otherwise, try to delegate it. Let's move on. I got this question this week from a lady who had bought some avocado salad from Grudzinski's, and in it had a sprinkling of croutons. Which bracha should be said on the croutons? So we've got here two issues. One is, what is the bracha on croutons per se? And the other one is when the croutons are now in the salad. So let's first deal with the croutons in the salad, assuming that the croutons are mazonis, let's say, which that's what this sefer is assuming. So this first opinion is suggesting that the croutons will dominate and make the whole salad into mazonos. Amnom lemaisa, he says, it's leroy lechol yirei shamayim, you should avoid this because you've got the Shulchan Aruch Rav and the Chayyim Odom, each one for different reasons, holds that the salad will not become mazonos. And so here he quotes from the Alter Rebbe, that which we say that the grain element would dominate the whole thing is if they were cooked together, or if it's clear that the other stuff is toffel to the grain. But here that's not the case. Here it's clear that the main thing is the avocado, and the croutons are there to give it a bit of a crunch, a bit of a something or other, but it's not. So according to the Alter Rebbe, the croutons do not dominate, and therefore what I would say is the salad would be an avocado salad, and you make the bracha accordingly. What about the croutons? Now you'd have to make a separate bracha. The problem which I have is, which I didn't look into more carefully just now, you've got croutons which are mazonos, the little yellow ones, but then you've got diced bread. They take bread, cut it into regular bread, just a moitzi, cut it into little cubes, and they add a bit of spice and deep fry it. But that's it. For all intents and purposes, you look at it, you see it's a piece of bread. So according to my understanding from the Alter Rebbe, even though it's less than a kazayis, it still remains hamotzi because it still looks like bread. And therefore, I think this lady who asked me this question, she said she took the croutons and put them out to one side. And I said, I would do exactly the same as you, because the croutons would not, I wouldn't want, well, if I'm washing already, then, yeah. The whole idea is having this as a snack of some sort, and I would just keep the croutons to one side. Right. Let's come to your, someone putting on the chat a question. If there was no minyan until after Baruch She'omar, should one be said in Psuke de Zimra? You mean should Kaddish the Rabbanon be said in Psuke de Zimra? I think not. No. The Kaddish, certainly Alpi Kabbalah, the Kaddish is to distinguish between Olam HaAsiya and Olam HaBriya. Olam HaAsiya and Olam HaYetzira. And the same thing, the Kaddish between Yishtabach and Yitzha'ir is between Yetzira and Olam HaBriya. So if you're looking for the Kabbalah reason, it should be said at the junctures, not in middle. I had a funny experience. I was in New York a couple of years ago. I was in one shul, and someone came along late on Shabbos morning. Was it Yom Tov morning? He comes late, and it was after he was in Shnas Avelis or whatever. So after Hadas Ve'emunah, he said his Kaddish over there, and then someone says, where does Gehed Gevorn? Where do you see a shul in the middle of Sukkot de Zimra? They come along and say Kaddish. That was the beginning of Sukkot. The end of Sukkot, I was in a Chabad house, and typically every morning over Yom Tov, they didn't have a minyan first thing, by Hoidu, and each day of Yom Tov, it was the same story. After Hadas Ve'emunah, then Tavalov and Yoda and Kaddish. So, as you say, vive la différence. Okay, so now back to the question about the avocado salad. Do you say a separate bracha? The answer is you'd say if you wanted to have the croutons and then the mazonos croutons, I would take one apart, say a bracha mazonos, and then say a bracha on the salad separately. Similarly, if you are one of those people who pick cherries off birthday cakes, I don't even know what the bracha on a cherry of a birthday. Those cherries have gone through such a transition from a natural cherry. Perhaps they're pure shahakal in any case. But if you pick a fruit off a cream cake, you would make a bracha separately. If you have the cake together with the fruit, and in that position, it's tough, and you wouldn't make a separate bracha. Okay, since we're talking about brachas on foods, we have the next question, and that is about a salad of tomatoes and cucumbers and avocado. Now, in case I'm sure everyone is aware that avocado is a boyer priho eitz. What was Yaakov's quote? If you are clever, you know that tomato is a fruit. If you are intelligent, you don't put it in the fruit basket. So now, but avocados are boire priho eitz. They are, however, because of their taste, they have quite a common combination with salads. So now you've got a salad which is predominantly boire priho adomo, and it's got cubes of avocado also. So what is the bracha? So now this is, again, it's the same apprehension of the Alter Rebbe, where we have a combination, but they haven't been cooked together. So let's read the underlined part. Actually, this sheaf is about soups, but it's the same halach. Let's say if you have a lokshen in a soup, you have made soup separately, and then you cooked lokshen separately, and you put in the soup. It does not make the soup mazonos, because they were cooked separately. So the lokshen is mazonos, and the soup is shahakal. So here we have a similar situation. V'im kavanosei al shneim. If you want both of them, ein holchin boy acher haroiv. We wouldn't decide, the majority wins. Ela mavorich al shnehem. You'd make a bracha on both of them. First, al hamaychol, they're talking about the food and the soup. And so in avocado, in a salad, I don't think it's there just to flavor the rest of the salad. I think you want to have the avocado as well as the others. I think it's on equal footing to the others. And therefore, I think one should first take a cube of avocado, put it to one side, and make a brocho ha'etz, and then have the other components of the salad. Right, let's go on. Here I have a question from a Chabad house somewhere in the United States, and he's struggling to keep people from Mincha through till Maariv with a large interruption in between. So he was grappling with the idea perhaps he should do Mincha after sunset, and as a result he will have Maariv will be on time. Or should he do Mincha before sunset? But as a result, Maariv has to compromise one side. Should he compromise on Maariv bismanoi, or should he compromise on Mincha bismanoi? So we've got the famous idea that we've got Rabbi Yehuda allows us to daven Maariv from Plaga Mincha, and in this part of the world, probably most shuls, synagogues for sure, during the summer they will do Maariv whilst it's, funny people ask. It comes in the winter, it's 6:30, it's pitch black, and we're davening Shacharis. And it comes the summer, it's 7:30, 7:35, the sun is shining, and we're davening Maariv. You say it's night, okay, so we're flexible. Okay, so now, so we're following Rabbi Yehuda. So now, davening Mincha after Shkia, the Alter Rebbe takes the view that one should daven Mincha before Shkia, and so does the Mishnah Berurah, the Gro, etc. Quite strict about that. The Alter Rebbe is a little bit more tolerant. He says, "Elimcha is biyad mekilin." So here I've got a quote from the Mishnah Berurah actually. V'yesh oimrim, this is the same Reish Samach Zayin. V'yesh oimrim betzibur yesh lohokel l'spal Maariv mib'od yoim after mispal mincha acha plaga mincha. V'nira li she'elis michal zeh ra kashu mispal Maariv al kol ponim bebein hashmoshes b'shasat chak. So what the Mishnah Berurah is recommending here, if you could do Mincha before sunset and Maariv, at least it's Ben Hashmoshes, at least it's Sofak Laila, that would be recommended. So he's recommending this. What this fellow is asking, Mr. Berurah is actually recommending, do Mincha before Shkia and Maariv right after Shkia during what we call Ben Hashmoshes. So that's at least to do Maariv Sofak Laila. So that would be rather than compromising on Mincha. You know what? If you're going to compromise on Mincha, they may come late, and you're going to be even later. If you make Mincha on time, so if they do come late, so at least you're going to get your Mincha Samach l'Shkia, one side or the other. Okay. Finally, I'm going to finish a little earlier because we have Maariv at 10 o'clock, at 9 o'clock. So I want to go out a couple of minutes early. So I put it for 9:50. So we'll finish in 2 minutes. So someone asked me the question, what's the story of when we have in Omein Selo, in Pisuas Omer, Omein Selo, or Omein vi Omein? What does it mean, this double Omein? So I looked in the Sefer from Rabbi Heber, Shmuel Heber, so he brings actually, like you're not meant to say Shema Shema, you're not meant to say Moedim Moedim. So there's a Yerushalmi which says shouldn't say Amen Amen. Sometimes we do find Amen, we say in Parsha Sota. That's not talking about Eibishter. That's talking about the Shvua. Amen li'ish zeh, Amen li'ish acher. So we do find Amen, but we see Amen vi Amen. What is the meaning? He does bring some pirushim over there. Here we have a nice shtickle from, this is a quote from one of the Jikva Rebbes, who says, Omen Selo. Omen Selo is like this. Omen is Gematria 91, and Selo is Gematria 95. Now we say Yud Kei Vav Kei. Bayoimahu Yihye, Hashem Echad, Hashem Echad, L'osid Lovoi will be Yihye. Instead of Yud Kei Vav Kei will be Yihye, and somehow that's going to increase. So Omen is Havaya and Adni, 26. And Omen is 26, and 65. So that brings you to 91. If instead of Yud K Vav K it's going to be Yud K, that's 30. So then Yud Yiyeh and Adni will come up to 95. And that's what he says. Omein Selo, that you should come, the Osid Love, we should come from the Omein, should come to Selo, which is an increase to the Gematria of 95. That's how it's going to be Osid Love. And so Nish Hirotzi Shaniz Kelozeh, Bimheiro, V'Yameinu Omein. We'll stop with that, and Bez Hashem, we should meet in good health.
Amen. Shkoyach. What did you say the Alter Rebbe says about the Mincha Maariv?
I said the Alter Rebbe is quite strong about davening Maariv before Shkia. That's what I said.
He doesn't agree with it.
Again, the Alter Rebbe says you should daven Maariv before Shkia, rather than leaving it for later. Davening Maariv early, the Alter Rebbe says the minig is Bismana Achri we machmir to daven Maariv Bismanoi. But whole of Ashkenaz would daven Maariv early. It was always accepted. Ad Kedei Kach, they didn't even say Aleinu. And the reason why they say Brocho without a Kaddish, because they would have a Kaddish at the end of Mincha. And go straight to
that's why.
They don't need a Kaddish before Brocho. All right, we're going to have to stop here.
Thank you.
Wish you all a good Shabbos. Carl too.
Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
This to switch it off, it plays around with you.